I'm a total flunky. On the day of the SATs, my neighbor bet I couldn't even break 200. When I opened the test booklet, I just stared blankly at the words on the page. Some people in this classroom have been possessed by ghosts. Find them. I was born with the ability to see ghosts. This was basically a freebie. Come on, Jenna, you've got your bag, right? Check one more time and make sure you didn't forget anything. I was walking with my head down when a heavy-set woman suddenly burst out from around a corner and slammed right into me, sending me flying. My dad rushed to help me up, yelling, "Brenda Peterson, why don't you watch where you're going? If you hurt my Amy's arm and it affects her on the exam, you'll have me to deal with." Mrs. Peterson just pursed her lips. If it were anyone else, maybe. But with your Amy's grades, it makes no difference whether she takes the test or not. If you ask me, why are you even wasting these few days? You should send her out to get a job right now. She could get a head start on all the other kids who flunk out and have a better shot. Mrs. Peterson ridiculed me without a second thought. My dad's face turned beet red, but he was so choked with anger he couldn't say a word. Because I was the most famous underachiever in our entire apartment complex. Ever since I was little, no matter where I was, I always locked down dead last. No one could even compete with me. My dad has a government job, and our apartment was assigned by his work unit, so everyone in the complex is a coworker. I got my share of spankings as a kid because of it, but no matter how much he disciplined me, my grades never improved. Eventually, I earned the nickname Amy the Dummy, and none of the other kids would play with me anymore. After blow of me bringing home single-digit test scores, my dad finally gave up all hope. "Amy, it's okay. It's my fault for not making you smarter. I've seen how hard you've worked these past few years. It's not your fault. You've studied this much, so let's just finish the exam. At least you'll have some closure." My dad picked up my backpack from the ground and forced a smile, patting me on the head. Mrs. Peterson let out a snort of laughter. "What kind of closure? The I scored 200 points kind? Amy, if you can manage to score 200 points, I'll get you a huge gift." "Mom, you're making it too hard for her. The last time, she got a 170 on all 6 subjects combined. It was hilarious. Ha ha ha." Jenna clung to her mom's arm, laughing hysterically. Jenna's dad, Mr. Peterson, works in the same office as my dad. They had a disagreement at work a while back, and ever since, Mrs. Peterson has made it her mission to oppose our family at every turn, turning everything into a competition she has to win. My poor grades meant my dad hadn't been able to hold his head high for years. As the sun climbed higher, other people in the courtyard started pointing and whispering about us. Most were encouraging Jenna to do well on her exams, but a few were talking about me in hushed tones. With grades like that, and a girl too, what a disgrace. I hung my head in shame. It's not like I wanted these grades, but no one would believe me if I told them the truth. I was born with the ability to see ghosts and have been able to see things others can't my whole life. The ghosts would cover my eyes when I was doing my homework, snatch my pencil, and scare me at night by hanging upside down from my headboard in all sorts of terrifying shapes. I was constantly sleep-deprived and couldn't focus. It's a miracle I didn't have a complete mental breakdown. I just didn't have any energy left for studying. My dad walked me to the school gate, sighed and waved me in. His once straight back was now stooped. For all these years, no matter what gossip swirled around, my dad had weathered the pressure and insisted I stay in school. The person I felt I'd let down the most was him. I took a deep breath and walked into the exam center. This was the most important day of my life. I hoped no wandering spirits would come and mess with me. The first subject was language arts. I followed the signs to my classroom, but as soon as I pushed the door open, my heart sank. The room was already full. I was the last one to arrive. 7 rows, 7 columns, 49 seats. With just one glance, I spotted at least 8 or 9 ghosts. Some had their tongues lolling out. Others were gouging out their eyeballs and chewing on them. They were perched on the students' shoulders, and when I walked in, they all turned their eyes to stare at me. A shiver ran down my spine. Based on my years of experience with ghosts, the more you fear them, the more they mess with you. The best strategy is to pretend you can't see them. I quickly lowered my head and hurried to my seat. Thankfully, at least my spot was ghost-free. I breathed a sigh of relief, unzipped my backpack, and pulled out a compass? I was stunned. What the hell? I'm here for my college entrance exams. Why would I bring a compass? Who swapped out my school supplies? Who would pull a prank like this on such an important day? My eyes turned red with anger. I was about to raise my hand to tell the teacher when I looked up and saw the student at the next desk also pull a compass out of their bag. The proctor at the front of the room tapped on the desk. All right, put your compasses on your desks. Put your bags away. The exam is about to begin. I was completely lost. I secretly pinched my thigh hard. The pain was sharp. This wasn't a dream. I sat there dumbfounded, not knowing what to do. When the exam bell rang, the proctor quickly handed out the test booklets. Whatever. Dream or not, I'm in an exam hall, so the test is what matters. I looked down at the test paper, and my eyes widened in disbelief. On the white sheet of paper, there was only a single line of text. Some people in this classroom have been possessed by revenants. Find them. I looked around the room. Did I even need to look? On the back of the paper was a list of everyone's seat number. If a student was possessed by a revenant, you were supposed to fill in the little box next to their seat number with a pencil. Pencil in hand, I decided to watch what the others did first. The guy to my left seemed like a real brainiac. With a look of total confidence, he fiddled with the compass in his hand. After a moment, he got up with the compass and walked toward the back row of the classroom. As he walked, he kept his eyes on the needle of the compass. Other students also started leaving their seats and moving around. So, you could walk around freely during this exam. The other students were all wandering about with their compasses, while I sat frozen in my seat, sticking out like a sore thumb. About 10 minutes later, the proctor tapped the desk again. All right, the first round of searching is over. Please return to your seats and fill in your answers. You have 1 minute. Don't worry if you haven't found any yet. There are a total of 7 rounds in this exam. You can find them in the later rounds. After observing for 2 rounds, I finally started to get the hang of it. Everyone was using a compass to find the revenants, but as the students moved, the revenants moved with them. Once you found one, you had to remember which student it was attached to without letting anyone else notice. It wasn't as simple as it looked. For 2 whole rounds, I just watched everyone else, never getting up or even touching my compass. The proctor shot me a disapproving glare. This is the SAT. Some students, no matter how poor their grades usually are, could you at least try to make an effort today? A mocking voice came from the back of the room. Teacher, that's Amy the dummy. She's dead last in the entire school. I turned my head and saw that Jenna was here too. I hadn't even noticed her before. Since she's here, even if she's dead last, she should still take the exam seriously. The proctor's gaze on me grew even more dissatisfied. I could only lower my head. I didn't actually know the difference between these revenants and the ghosts I used to see. They seemed to be shrouded in a hazy gray mist and looked even more disgusting. The one in the row behind me was especially vile. The upper half of its nose was just a skull, with maggots crawling in its eye sockets. It seemed to notice me looking at it, and suddenly grinned at me. The skin on its cheeks split open and began to peel away. I felt a wave of nausea and desperately wanted to leave the exam hall. When the proctor tapped the desk for the 3rd time, I picked up my test paper and quickly filled in the locations of all the revenants. Teacher, I'd like to turn in my paper. Fine. Get out quickly and don't disturb the others. I handed my paper in at the front desk and left the classroom. After I was gone, the proctor frowned and let out a long sigh. Ugh, these students nowadays. How can there still be some who don't even know how to use a compass? He shook his head as he glanced down at the paper in his hand, and then his eyes shot wide open. Holy shit! The proctor stared at the answers in disbelief. He had been bored during the exam and had already used his own compass to figure out all the correct answers. My paper was a perfect match. How was that possible? Impossible. This is impossible. How could someone find the exact locations of the revenants without using a compass? Could this student have cheated? The proctor was filled with suspicion, while I, wandering around the campus, was completely oblivious to it all. I strolled aimlessly until I reached a bulletin board covered in several flashy posters. Great news! Our school's Leo Zhou won first prize in the National Collegiate Exorcism Championship. On the poster was a photo of a young man with sharp brows, piercing eyes, and a rebellious expression. Next to it, in tiny print, was the story of how he overcame every obstacle, finding and eliminating 6 revenants and 3 wraiths in a town of tens of thousands. I was dumbstruck. It took me a moment to realize I must have crossed over into some kind of parallel universe. Everything else here was identical to my world, but the college entrance exam was about catching ghosts. People who could exorcise spirits held a very high status here. Half an hour later, it was time for the foreign language exam. As soon as I entered the classroom, the proctor stared at me like a hawk. I ignored him and looked at my test paper. At the top, a single sentence was written. Please write down every word the revenant repeats. Once everyone had their papers, the proctor pulled a gourd out from under his desk. He opened the lid, and a cloud of black mist drifted out. A dazed-looking old man, his face covered in blood, began to mechanically repeat a few sentences. You all deserve to die. Yosti. The gates of the underworld are open. The Ghost King will descend upon the mortal realm, rule over all, and cleanse this world of all its evils. He spoke slowly, repeating each sentence 3 times, but the other students were scratching their heads and looking even more pained than I used to during my English listening tests. I methodically wrote down every word he said, feeling like I was absolutely crushing it. Unlike the normal SATs, there were only 3 subjects here, and they were all completed in one day. The third test was a comprehensive practical exam. Each student was given a variety of artifacts, and at the back of the classroom was a row of special cages containing different types of ghosts. I had no idea which artifact was meant for which ghost, but as soon as I picked up the correct one, the ghost in the cage would show a look of terror. That's how I knew it was the right answer. After the exam, I was packing my bag to go home when the proctor asked me to stay behind. He looked at me with a meaningful expression. Young lady, about what happened today, if you go to the dean's office and confess, I can pretend none of this ever happened. Otherwise, if the oversight committee investigates you, your entire future will be ruined. You won't even be able to get a job. No factory will dare to hire you. Jenna was walking slowly and happened to overhear this. Her eyes lit up, and she shot me a gloating look before grabbing her bag and running off. She was definitely going to spread some nasty rumors. I started to get anxious. Sir, what do you mean? Are you accusing me of cheating? You're a student at the bottom of the class. Don't you know in your heart whether you cheated or not? The proctor looked dead serious. I panicked. I really didn't cheat. I insisted for a while that I hadn't cheated, but the proctor lost his patience. He grabbed my arm and started pulling me along. Fine, then let's go to the oversight committee. The committee's office was right next to the dean's office. When I saw them, I was even more shocked. The oversight committee was a group of old men, all wearing traditional robes and carrying peachwood swords on their backs. The proctor slapped my test papers down on the table. Director Zhou, take a look at this. In all my years of proctoring, I've never seen a student get a perfect score. What a perfect score! In a small town like Plainview, we have a genius like this. All the old men swarmed around the table, crowding together to look at the test papers. The proctor sneered. What genius? A genius who finds revenants without even looking at a compass? Her name is Amy Lee, and her usual school performance is dead last. As soon as he said that, everyone realized the gravity of the situation. After comparing the papers, they all exchanged a knowing glance. Director Zhou, a spry old man with half-white hair, put on a stern face. Was the test leaked beforehand? Amy Lee, where did you get the answer key? I really didn't cheat. Ha! You didn't even look at a compass. How did you find the revenants? Don't tell me you have the second sight? When Director Zhou said that, everyone burst out laughing as if they'd heard the world's greatest joke, slapping the table and doubling over. The proctor laughed so hard he clapped his hands. Amy Lee, if you dare to say you have the second sight, I'll. But I do have the second sight. Not only can I see ghosts, but I can also hear them speak. I felt wronged. Is having the second sight that rare? Even in my own world, the one that believed in science, you'd still hear stories about people who had it. After I spoke, everyone went silent. The atmosphere in the room grew heavy. Director Zhou was so angry his beard was practically trembling. Utter nonsense. Only those who have cultivated their spiritual arts to an extremely high level can achieve the second sight. Everyone in the country who has it is a legendary exorcist master. You couldn't even find 3 on the entire East Coast. What kind of second sight could you possibly have? They all accused me of making things up and joking about such a serious matter. But I held my ground and even asked them to bring out a few ghosts to test me. Looks like you have to learn things the hard way. Everyone was furious. Mr. Evans, the proctor, immediately went to the equipment room and brought out a few captured ghosts for me to identify on the spot. That's a male ghost, in his 30s or 40s. That one is a female ghost in red, with blood streaming down her face, very scary. And that little one is only 7 or 8. He says he's looking for his mommy. After I finished, the room fell silent. Mr. Evans gasped, his mouth open wide enough to fit an egg. Director Zhou snatched the ghost labels from the gourd in his hand, took one look, and his eyes widened in shock. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. I feel like there's something off about this student. What's your name? Amy, right? How about this? I'll call my alma mater, Yale University, right now. You can pack your things and report directly to Yale. The university has advanced equipment, will conduct a thorough study. Director Zhou jotted down my name and phone number. The deputy director next to him suddenly reacted. You old fox. How dare you try to snatch a once-in-a-generation genius who unlocked the second sight on her own? He lunged forward, grabbed my hand, and shook it excitedly. Amy, is it? I'm from Harvard. I'm unilaterally declaring that you've been accepted to Harvard. We're offering you a $500,000 scholarship and covering your room and board for all 4 years. Let's sign the contract right now. Director Zhou rushed over and grabbed my other arm. Duncan, what do you think you're doing? I discovered this student. You dare to steal her from me? You still haven't paid back the $2,000 you borrowed from me last year, remember? Let go of her. Bullshit. Harvard is #1 in the country. A genius of this caliber deserves to be taught by Harvard and Harvard alone. Don't give me that crap. What's Yale lacking compared to you? The winner of last year's National Exorcism Championship was from our school. The deputy director was so furious his hair stood on end. That's because you stole Leo Zhou from us. Don't even get me started on that. I'm the one who personally sent Leo to the capital. You steal Leo, and now you want to steal Amy? I'm gonna kill you. With that, the deputy director drew the peachwood sword from his back and thrust it at Director Zhou's chest. Director Zhou staggered back a few steps, completely enraged. Damn it, you old bastard, I'll fight you. The 2 directors started brawling. The others tried to mediate. Hey, come on, let's all be civil. Amy, right? Look, they're fighting like this over you. No matter which school you choose, you'll make an enemy. Why not come to my alma mater instead? I'm from Columbia in New York, it's pretty close to your home. So Chen, you're no better than they are. Close to home? How can it be closer than our state university? Amy, we're from the same state. There's no place like home. And our state needs you to help build its future. A moment later, the other members of the oversight committee started fighting too. Some were trying to break it up. Others were on their phones calling their own alma maters for backup. It was a total madhouse. I just stared, dumbfounded. The chaos in the office was getting ridiculous. I saw an opening, slipped out, and ran for my life all the way home. I was panting, my mind a jumbled mess. This world was too surreal. I never thought I'd see the day when teachers from these prestigious universities would come to blows over me. Was the second sight really that big of a deal? The school wasn't far from my home. As I approached the entrance to my apartment complex, I sensed something was wrong. The security guard saw me but didn't greet me like he usually did. Instead, he turned his head and avoided my gaze. I slowed my pace. People in the complex were standing on either side, whispering amongst themselves. I heard she cheated. How does she have the nerve to come back? Cheating on the SATs? That's a criminal offense. Are the exorcist guard going to show up? This is so embarrassing. If word gets out, our property values are going to plummet. After listening for a while, I finally understood. This world was completely different from my old one. There were no wars between humans here because everyone had a common enemy: ghosts and ghouls. The gates of hell had opened, and every day, tens of thousands of spirits slipped into the human world, causing all sorts of chaos and disasters. The exorcist guard was the equivalent of the army in my world, responsible for finding and eliminating these creatures. All the universities were designed to train talent for the exorcist guard, preparing students to take on the heavy responsibility of exorcising ghosts. Therefore, anyone who cheated on the entrance exams, someone who lacked the necessary skills but joined the guard anyway, was gambling with the lives of ordinary people. The government despised this kind of behavior and had enacted extremely strict laws against it. Look, Amy the dummy is back. A crowd had gathered at the base of my apartment building. Jenna's family of 3 stood at the very front. She pointed at me excitedly, her face filled with schadenfreude. Mrs. Peterson shot a disgusted look my way, pulling her daughter further away from my parents. Even if it was just to score 200 points, you didn't have to cheat, did you? You've disgraced our entire complex. Yeah, Mark, your family should just move out. After what Amy did, you're definitely going to get fired. You should start packing your bags now. My parents stood together, holding on to each other, their faces pale. Amy, you foolish girl. My dad cried, his eyes red and his lips trembling. Dad doesn't care what you score, as long as you're safe and sound. Amy, how could you be so foolish? I slowly walked toward my parents, my expression one of terror. This was the first time I had seen Jenna's father. When I left this morning, only her mother was there. I had seen many ghosts, but I had never seen one that looked like this. Sitting on top of Mr. Peterson's head was a large, fleshy orb. It had no limbs, just a giant mouth and a single eye on its fleshy surface. As the mouth opened and closed, wisps of white energy rose from everyone around it and floated into its maw. I froze on the spot. The orb's eye suddenly glared at me, its gaze hostile, and its entire body began to swell. Like an inflating balloon, its body grew larger and larger, the veins on its surface bulging as thick as pipes, looking grotesque and terrifying. One of the veins suddenly shot out from the orb, extending toward me like a tentacle. I desperately wanted to run, but my intuition told me that if I did, I was dead for sure. I could only pretend I didn't see it, forcing myself to stand still and remain calm. Sure enough, the tentacle stopped right in front of my face. Its tip was covered in fleshy barbs and connected to a long, slender eyeball. The eyeball swiveled up and down, circling my face before retracting. Cold sweat soaked through my clothes. Seeing the look on my face, everyone became convinced that I had cheated. A look of utter despair crossed my dad's face. Amy, did you really cheat? My mom burst into tears and rushed over, hitting my arm hard. You wretched child. You've been nothing but trouble since you were little. I'll beat you to death. Mrs. Peterson chimed in. What's with the act? A light tap like that won't kill anyone. You two have spoiled your child from the beginning. You always said you're dummy. Amy was so obedient and well-behaved. Look now. See what all that spoiling has led to. Yeah, their daughter's been spacey since she was a kid. You could tell she wasn't all there. They used to get mad when we said it. Mark was even bragging to me that while his daughter wasn't good at school, she was a sweet and filial kid. And now? What good can come from someone who dares to cheat? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Mark's been an ordinary worker for years, and his wife works in a cafeteria. What kind of future could their kid have? If you ask me, it's a problem with their genes. My parents weren't like other parents. They had expectations for me, and when my grades were bad at first, my dad thought I was being mischievous and would discipline me. But as I grew older, they gradually accepted the reality of the situation. They started comforting me instead, telling me there were many paths to success, and that even if I didn't do well in school, I'd find another way. They carefully protected my self-esteem, finding creative ways to encourage and affirm me. Even when my mom would scold me, she'd quickly realize it and apologize. I was so lucky to have parents like them. Now, with everyone pointing fingers at us, My parents stood there with their heads bowed, filled with self-blame and heartbreak, utterly humiliated. The surrounding accusations and gossip were about to drown us. My dad's lips trembled, his eyes red. "Amy, tell me, did you cheat or not?" "Dad, I didn't. I absolutely did not cheat." I looked at my dad with determination. He paused for a moment, then took my hand. "Okay, Dad believes you. Amy, let's go home." The three of us held hands and, against the backdrop of the setting sun and the crowd's jeers, walked toward our home. Jenna's mother slapped her thigh and cursed. "Bah! Still says she didn't cheat." My Jenna saw it with her own eyes. "Just wait till tomorrow when the exorcist guard comes to arrest your whole family." Mr. Peterson glared at us with malice. "Mark, you'd better get the hell out of here. If you're not gone by tomorrow, you'll see what I do to you." He brandished his fist. My dad's face was ashen, but he didn't say a word, just pulled me through the main door. As we turned into the stairwell, my expression changed instantly. "Dad, do you have my school's phone number? Call them quick." My dad gave me my homeroom teacher's number. I tried calling several times, but no one answered. Then I remembered I could also contact the exorcist guard. Just like the police, the exorcist guard had a special hotline. If you suspected someone was possessed, you could call them. I dialed the hotline, 777, and explained in detail what had happened today. When the operator heard me mention seeing a large, fleshy orb, her attitude changed immediately. "You saw it? With your own eyes? Miss, filing a false report is illegal." I gripped the phone, so anxious I didn't know how to explain. I looked up and suddenly saw that our front door was open. The Petersons lived right across from us. Mr. Peterson was standing in his doorway, watching me grimly from across the hall. My heart pounded in my chest. I immediately changed the subject. "Oh, okay, I'll come over and hang out tomorrow." After hanging up, I walked over and shut our door. Then I went into my bedroom and went through all my textbooks. The middle school textbooks in this world mainly covered the classification and dangers of various ghosts. High school taught how to find, identify, and try to communicate with evil spirits, along with a few very basic exorcism spells. The gist was that peachwood swords worked against common ghosts, a 7-star sword could slay wraiths, and there were instructions for other artifacts. The textbooks were thin, and I finished them all in an hour. After reading, I followed the instructions in the book, taking out some small flags and a handful of copper coins to set up a simple protective formation in our home. The Aegis of 8 Suns, also known as the Golden Bell Ward, was a formation designed to prevent malevolent spirits from entering. It could stop common evil spirits from getting into our house. The exams were today, and the results would be announced tomorrow. The teachers from the oversight committee would definitely come to my house in person. As long as I could make it through tonight, I could tell them about the fleshy orb tomorrow. My parents were heavy-hearted and barely ate any dinner. My dad kept looking at me, wanting to say something but stopping himself several times. My mom comforted him. "That's enough. If Amy really did cheat, the school will contact us tomorrow. There's no use in worrying about it now." My dad shook his head, sighed, and sat alone, drinking heavily. He was in a bad mood and ate very little, quickly becoming drunk and throwing up all over the floor. I helped clean up the living room, and by the time my mom and I got him to bed and cleaned him up, it was already past 10 o'clock. "Amy, you go to bed. You said you didn't cheat, and Mom believes you. No matter what the results are tomorrow, we can accept it." My mom sat on the edge of the bed with her eyes downcast. I went over and hugged her. "Mom, trust me. The proctor had a misunderstanding at first, and Jenna left after hearing only half of it. We cleared up the misunderstanding later. I absolutely did not cheat." "Okay, Mom believes you." My mom reached out and stroked my head. As I left their bedroom, I saw my mom still sitting in the same position, holding my dad's hand and crying silently. Well, it was useless to say more now. Once the teachers arrived tomorrow, the truth would come out. I took a shower and went back to my room to sleep. As I was drifting off, I suddenly heard a noise from the living room. Someone walked up to my door. The handle turned, the door slowly creaked open, and a figure silently walked to my bedside, staring down at me. He had a strong smell of alcohol, and the familiar scent of our laundry detergent. I relaxed. It was Dad. Wait. Dad was so drunk tonight. How could he be awake so soon? My whole body tensed up instantly. I cracked my eyes open just a sliver. The room was dim. The curtains weren't drawn, and the faint yellow glow of the streetlights illuminated a small area. Dad's face was shrouded in shadow. My dad stared at me for a while, then walked to the window and opened it. We live on the 4th floor of an old complex with a lot of trees. The tree outside was taller than our window, and there were a lot of bugs, but my dad even opened the screen. I was about to say something when an incredibly bizarre scene unfolded. 2 tentacles suddenly sprouted from my dad's back, extending to the wall outside. They clung to the wall like suction cups, and just like that, my dad climbed out the window. I lay in bed, cold sweat drenching my back, debating whether I should get up and look. Suddenly, I heard another sound at my doorway. My mom crawled in through the door. All 4 of her limbs were on the wall, and she also had 2 tentacles on her back. Like a human spider, she scuttled across the ceiling until she was directly above my head. I squeezed my eyes shut. I felt a drop of warm, sticky fluid land on my cheek. My mom's long hair brushed against my face, tickling my nose. I desperately wanted to sneeze but held it in, not daring to move a muscle. After what felt like an eternity, a warm breeze blew in from the window. I opened my eyes and saw that my mom had disappeared. The books on my desk by the window were scattered on the floor. She must have knocked them over as she climbed out. I let out a sigh of relief and walked to the window, leaning out to look. One look, and my entire body trembled. It felt as if a giant hand had seized my heart, causing it to stop abruptly. My mom was still just below the window. Her limbs were clinging to the wall, and she was looking up at me. Unlike usual, her eyes were completely black, without a trace of white. I let out a scream, grabbed a book from the desk, and threw it at her face. Then I turned and ran for my life. At night, the exorcist guard patrolled the streets outside. If I could just make it outside, they would surely find me. Our building didn't have an elevator. I burst out of our apartment and flew down the stairs. I could hear my mom chasing me from behind, her limbs hitting the iron railing of the staircase with a thud-thud sound. 4th floor, 3 flights of stairs, 2, 1 just a few more steps. My legs were starting to feel weak, and my lungs were about to explode. On the last few steps, I had almost reached out my hand when I realized something strange. I didn't see the familiar iron door of the 1st floor. I must have miscounted in my panic. Maybe I was on the 2nd floor. I couldn't lose momentum. I kept running down with all my might. After another flight of stairs, I stopped dead. Above me was a dim, motion-activated light, flickering on and off. To my left was a grimy wall. To my right an old iron railing. The narrow staircase was sandwiched between them, stretching endlessly downward. Why was there another floor? The thud-thud-thud behind me was getting closer. I took a deep breath and leaned over the railing to look down. The sight made the last shred of my courage evaporate. The iron railing spiraled down, dense and seemingly endless. At the center was a bottomless abyss, a thick darkness that felt like it could swallow everything. I collapsed onto the ground, gasping for air. Screw this, I wasn't running anymore. My mom had caught up. Like Spider-Man, she was crouched on the stairs, staring at me with her black eyes. I waved a hair. This is a pretty impressive spell. What's it called? The Endless Abyss? The Mobius Staircase. My mom's jaw dropped. How do you know about the Endless Abyss? You can speak the ghostly tongue? Are you one of us? Me? Question mark. What the hell? I was speaking the ghostly tongue? Wasn't this just plain English? My mom retracted her tentacles, looking at me indecisively. What clan are you from? Why can't I sense your aura? My heart was racing, my mind a complete blank. My mom's eyes started to gleam with malice. If I didn't answer correctly, I was probably going to end up dead on the spot. After thinking for a moment, I took a deep breath and glared at her. You can't see it because your rank is too low. You should mind your own business and stay out of your superior's affairs. My mom was, as expected, stunned. After a long pause, she scratched her head and muttered to herself, "Why didn't Master Wuha tell me about this?" Master Wuha. Was that the fleshy orb? Wuha doesn't know jack. Don't let his big head fool you, it's full of water. Did he tell you to come after me? Let me tell you, I am now a 1 in a million genius among the humans. The second I get into Harvard, I'll be given the highest level of treatment. If you mess up my plan to infiltrate the human elite, you're all dead. I gave my mom a fierce dressing down, and she was thoroughly convinced. You can see, Master Wuha. You must be an even more powerful leader. My mom bought it. She dispelled the spell and let me go back. I warned her not to tell Wuha about tonight's events just yet, as I had a big plan for tomorrow. Then, I watched as 2 octopus-like monsters detached themselves from my parents' bodies and crawled out the window. Back in my room, I didn't dare to sleep. I sat on my bed all night, finally making it to dawn. Early in the morning, I heard Mrs. Peterson's excited, booming voice. Look, it's the teachers from the oversight committee at Jenna's school. They're all here. Oh my God, look over there, the exorcist guard is here too. They've come to arrest Amy Lee together. Everyone come out and see. Mrs. Peterson's face was flushed as she yelled at the top of her lungs, gathering half the complex. Everyone crowded downstairs, watching as the committee members, holding a banner, stormed into our complex with a menacing air. My parents stood in front of me, their faces pale. The banner was drooping, and I couldn't make out the words. Mrs. Peterson was so excited she was practically spraying saliva. Oh my God, they even brought a banner. Are they going to hang it in our complex to announce we have a cheater? It's over, it's all over. Our whole complex is going to be ruined because of your family. We should have kicked them out last night. This is so humiliating. The complex security guard followed beside the committee, pointing a finger at me. Look, Amy Lee is over there. I looked up and saw Director Zhou and Deputy Director Duncan at the very front, running so hard they were out of breath. Director Zhou pulled ahead by a body length, and Deputy Director Duncan immediately reached out to grab his pants. Director Zhou bit his hand in return, and the two started wrestling again. Besides them, there was a squad of young people in exorcist guard uniforms. The style was similar to Special Forces camo, with lots of pockets for various magical artifacts. Each person also carried colorful little flags on their backs, looking incredibly cool. The leader was a young man in his early 20s with a buzz cut. He was tall and was laughing as he walked. You two are ridiculous. The second sight? Haha. Who are Amy Lee's parents? Mrs. Peterson gloatingly pushed my dad forward. It's him. He's Amy the dummy's father. Director Zhou began. A child like Amy Lee. Mrs. Peterson clapped her hands. Exactly. This is the kind of child they raised. Director Zhou and Deputy Director Duncan exchanged a look. One grabbed my dad's arm, the other took my mom's hand. So you are her esteemed father-mother. Oh my, how did you raise such a genius like Amy Lee? My dad. Question mark. My mom, with a half-dried tear still on her cheek. A genius? Director Zhou affectionately held my dad's arm. Our entire family at Yale welcomes you. Amy, I heard your mom has been a temporary worker in a cafeteria for years, right? How about this? Let your parents come to Yale with you. We'll arrange a job for your mom right away in the logistics office. Plus, we'll give you an $800,000 scholarship. How does that sound? Deputy Director Duncan enthusiastically shook my mom's hand. Money isn't everything, that's too crass. Harvard's campus is as beautiful as a painting. We'll arrange a staff villa for you right by the lake. That's a privilege only full professors get. To recruit me, the two of them threw out all sorts of ridiculously tempting offers. Everyone watching was dumbfounded. The other teachers from the committee took a moment to explain that Amy Lee had achieved a perfect score on the entrance exams. In all these years, I was the only student to get a perfect score in every subject. Our school's principal and my homeroom teacher were also in the crowd. They excitedly unfurled the banner for everyone to see. A warm congratulations to Amy Lee of our county's 13th high for achieving the top score in the nation. As soon as the words were out, the entire complex erupted. What a perfect score! Amy Lee a genius! Holy crap, is this for real? The teachers from the oversight committee are all here, so it can't be fake. Oh my God, I've never seen anything like it. That's Harvard and Yale. I've never seen those two schools fight over a student like this. If you ask me, that Amy Lee kid was never ordinary. I used to see her talking to the air all the time. She was always so deep, you know. Tisk tsk. What do you expect from a genius? You think a genius is going to be like us normal people? The crowd buzzed with discussion. Those who had issues with my family in the past were now eagerly grabbing my parents' hands, trying to get on their good side. Jenna's family stood frozen in place, their faces a mixture of green and white. While the two committee members were arguing, I secretly sized up Jenna's dad. After the exorcist guard arrived, the fleshy orb had vanished instantly. It didn't fly away, it just disappeared into thin air, leaving no trace. A huge sense of unease washed over me. My parents were completely dazed by this massive stroke of luck that had fallen from the sky. They both looked bewildered. My dad. Harvard? The Harvard in Massachusetts. My mom. Yale University? A perfect score? What does that mean? Our Amy is the top scorer in the state. Oh, not just the state. Amy is the top scorer in the whole country. The whole country. National top scorer Harvard. My mom murmured to herself, her eyes turning red as she started to cry. My Amy is the national top scorer? I knew it. I knew our Amy didn't cheat. Look at you. Who cheats their way to a perfect score? Ha ha, Mark, you old dog. Your kid is so well behaved. Why didn't you say anything? This is a huge celebration for our company and our complex. We need a 3-day feast. I'll call someone to arrange it right now. Don't worry, the company will cover all the expenses. The factory director, having heard the news, rushed over and showered my dad with praise. Soon, tables were set up in the area where people usually did their square dancing. Everyone was celebrating, and the atmosphere was as festive as New Year's. All my aunts and uncles I barely knew suddenly crowded around me. Amy, your uncle knew you were special since you were a little girl. Amy, what's that pin you have in your shirt pocket? Remember how you used to eat at my house all the time? You can give that pen to your auntie. Haha, look, Timmy. This is your big sister Amy's pen. A pen used by the top scorer in the nation. Quick, take it. It'll be your turn to be top scorer in 2 years. Amy, I'm in the same department as your dad. Could you give me some paper and a pen too? I was surrounded by the crowd, and after a long struggle, covered in sweat, I finally found a gap and escaped. I pulled Director Zhou aside and told him what happened last night. Director Zhou's brow furrowed. A fleshy orb? Ahem, Amy, are you sure you didn't see it wrong? Director Zhou glanced at the exorcist guard next to him, his expression awkward. You might not know this, but the exorcist guard carries 3 purities bells. If there was an evil spirit nearby, it's impossible that they wouldn't have detected it. The 3 purities bell is an exorcism artifact that chimes whenever an evil spirit is near. Our county had been experiencing a string of strange deaths lately. Worried that something might happen to me, the national top scorer, the oversight committee had specifically requested the exorcist guard to accompany them to my house. Sure enough, Captain Miles of the exorcist guard scoffed when he heard my story. Looks like you two wasted a trip. The second sight? I bet this kid just made a wild guess and happened to get it right. Impossible. How could someone get a perfect score on all 3 subjects with just a wild guess? Director Zhou retorted, but his eyes now held a hint of doubt as he looked at me. Could it be that the second sight is intermittent? If her second sight was only occasionally reliable, then she wasn't worth the massive price they were willing to pay. The expressions on their faces turned grim. The more I tried to explain, the worse the 2 directors looked. I ran my hands through my hair in frustration and turned to look at Jenna's dad. Just then, to my shock, I saw the fleshy orb reappear. I immediately got excited. It's here. It's appeared. Captain Miles glanced at the 3 purities bell in his hand and sneered. Well, what do you know? A fake second sight after all. I panicked. There were so many people here now, and even they couldn't deal with it. Once the committee left, wouldn't I just be waiting to die? My mind raced, and I suddenly remembered a sentence from my high school textbook. The book said that beings from the ghost realm exist in a different dimension from us, but they are of a higher dimension. They can see us easily, but we can't see them. The only bridge between these 2 worlds is intense emotion. When a ghost wants to harm a person, it uses various methods to lure out the fear and evil in their heart. These negative emotions allow people to see the ghost, which in turn deepens their fear. By the same token, if I could provoke an extreme negative emotion in a ghost, could it become visible to others? It was a long shot, but I had to try. I took a deep breath and walked up to Jenna's dad. Mr. Peterson was in the crowd, eating at the feast. Hearing everyone praise me and suck up to my dad had put him in a foul mood. Seeing me approach, Mr. Peterson put down his chopsticks, stood up, and forced a smile. Well, look who it is. The top scorer. I leaped up and slapped him right on the head. The fleshy orb on top shuddered from the impact. Everyone was stunned. After a moment of silence, Jenna's mom let out a piercing shriek and rolled up her sleeves, charging toward us. So you're the top scorer, big deal. How dare you hit him? Others quickly grabbed her, looking at me with disapproval. Amy, he's still an elder. How could you hit him like that? I snorted. So what if he's an elder? He's the one I'm hitting. Then, I bit down hard on the tip of my tongue, and spat a mouthful of blood, right onto Mr. Peterson's head. Some master woo-ha. I spit on you. I'm not just hitting you, I'm spitting on you. In front of all these people, what are you gonna do about it? Ooh, a master from the ghost realm. So impressive. I'm so scared. Just look at your ugly mug. You're ugly and tacky. One look at you makes me want to puke. Any random hanged ghost or starved ghost is 100 times better looking than you. Does the ghost realm pick its leaders based on looks? The uglier you are, the higher your rank? At this rate, you should be the ghost king. With every insult, I jumped up and slapped it again, cranking my taunt level to the max. As expected, Mr. Peterson couldn't take it anymore. He let out a furious roar, clenched his fists, and yelled at the two directors. Is this the kind of student your Ivy League schools want to recruit? She insults a classmate's parent and even hits him. Look everyone, just look at this. Everyone took a step back, their faces filled with terror. Director Zhou and Deputy Director Duncan gasped, clutching their chests with pale faces. Mr. Peterson saw their reaction, froze for a second, and then immediately switched to a tearful performance. All I had was a small disagreement with her dad at work. And now that she's the top scorer, she dares to hit me in front of all these teachers. This kind of person, with this kind of character, if she joins the Exorcist Guard in the future, will she be a benefit or a detriment to us common folk? I urge you teachers to think twice. They say you must learn to be a good person before you learn the arts. The future of the Exorcist Guard cannot be in the hands of someone like this. Mr. Peterson got so into his righteous speech that he beckoned to his daughter. Jenna, come here. Teachers, look at my Jenna. Her grades may be average, but she has high moral character. She's a truly rare and wonderful child. I suggest that Harvard and Yale recruit kids like this in the future. Abilities can be cultivated, but a warped sense of morality can't be straightened out. He was spraying saliva as he spoke. The entire crowd in the complex was slowly backing away from him. Jenna, come here, didn't you hear your dad calling you? Mr. Peterson walked toward Jenna. She let out a terrified scream and hid in the crowd. It's a ghost. Stay away from me. As she screamed, everyone else finally caught on. They started screaming and fleeing in panic. The fleshy orb, successfully enraged by me, had slowly swelled up and was now floating in the air, extending countless tentacles in all directions. Holy shit! Captain Miles stared, dumbfounded and horrified. He tightened his grip on his 7-star sword and charged at Mr. Peterson. Formation. The other members of the Exorcist Guard quickly set up a formation, each holding an artifact at a different corner. The teachers from the Oversight Committee also joined in. With Captain Miles's command, bolts of lightning shot out from the formation, striking the fleshy orb. The orb let out a piercing shriek, its body swelling even larger. A tentacle shot out, lunging directly at me. Watch out! Director Zhou yelled, swinging his peachwood sword down and severing the tentacle. But for every tentacle that was cut, more sprouted to take its place. The two sides were quickly locked in a fierce battle. I stood on the side, watching, and soon noticed something. Every time Captain Miles waved his black formation flag, the tentacles seemed to retract more forcefully. It's afraid of the black command flag. Use the black one. Right, black represents water. Water can counter it. Everyone use water-based artifacts. Water-based artifacts included gourds and silver flasks. Sure enough, once everyone switched their weapons, their attacks became faster and their damage doubled. Soon, the fleshy orb was beaten to pieces, disintegrating into fragments in the air. Hee hee, the Ghost King is coming. You will all die. After we destroyed Master Wuha, the way they looked at me changed completely. Not only can you see them, but you can also communicate with them? A genius, a one-in-a-million genius. Could she be the savior of humanity? The two directors were ecstatic and immediately started calling their alma maters for more people to come and escort me. Captain Miles sneered. It must still be a coincidence. I refuse to believe anyone can understand the high-level language of the ghost realm. How about this, Amy? Forget Harvard and Yale. Our National Defense Academy is part of the Exorcist Guard's military division. You'll travel the country during your studies, exorcising demons. The school has the most advanced equipment for research. Plus, we have a lot of guys all over 6 feet tall, with 8-pack abs. You scoundrel, you backstabbing. The two directors lunged at him, and the recruitment battle escalated once again. Mr. Peterson was completely bewildered by the series of events, standing there in a daze. Sirs, Amy Lee hit me earlier. Didn't you see? Director Zhou shot him an impatient glare. She did the right thing. Provoking the Ghost Clan like that. Amy Lee is truly a one-in-a-million genius. Mr. Peterson's face darkened. Wait, so I just got beaten for nothing? What else do you want? How about this? We'll issue a commendation for your actions and get the TV station to do an interview. Captain Miles made the decision with a wave of his hand. Soon, a TV crew came and reported the story. The next day, the entire country was praising Mr. Peterson for taking that beating so well. Of course, that was all later. The most important thing right now was choosing a school. After talking with my parents, I finally chose the National Defense Academy. It wasn't because of the male students with 8-pack abs. Ahem, that kind of thing wasn't important to me at all. It was mainly because the Academy's special nature meant I'd have countless opportunities to engage in direct combat with ghosts during my college years. I was really drawn to that kind of opportunity. The president of the National Defense Academy came to my house personally to deliver the acceptance letter. My parents hugged each other, laughing and crying with joy, tears of happiness streaming down their faces. They were the most ordinary parents in the world, but they had protected me in their own way for half my life. And now it was my turn to protect them. The most exciting chapter of my life had just begun. End of story.